Today we're going to be talking to Heidi Jannenga, the Chief Clinical Officer of WebPT and one of Galvanize's next door neighbors. Hi, Heidi.
Hi, how are you, Miranda? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you
for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited to talk about WebPT. And it's funny, we've had several guests on our podcast reference WebPT specifically. So I was like, we have to talk to Heidi. So let's kick it off.
Oh, well, that's really awesome.
Yeah. What is WebPT?
So WebPT is an electronic health records specifically designed for rehab therapists. So that includes physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech language pathologist. We are basically have a software platform that empowers our therapists to be able to do business or run their business and their billing and practice management for outpatient physical therapy and rehab therapy offices.
Wow. I mean, that's such a niche, like such a specific market. How did you narrow it down and go into something so specific?
Well, I happen to be a physical therapist. So when we first started the company, it was really around solving a problem that I was having in my own practice. Mm-hmm. I was running 3 clinics here in Tempe, Arizona. It was actually one of the largest sports medicine practices in the country, and this was back in 2006. Right. And at that time, we were basically documenting everything on pen and paper, except for those notes that we would send to our referring physician. So when the physician would send a patient to me as a physical therapist, I would have to send him updates, notes on things that we were doing to just keep him abreast of the progress the patient was making. And so we would transcribe or dictate all of those notes that would go to our physicians. I had 10 therapists. So as you can imagine, we were seeing quite a few patients. And so that adds up. And that was one of our biggest costs for my practice. And so reimbursements have steadily sort of declined with what insurances are willing to pay per visit. So if your top line is coming down and your bottom line is either staying the same or growing, that means your bottom line is going down as well. And so we really wanted to try to figure out something that would solve my transcription and dictation problem. A lot of our referring physicians had started using some sort of digital platform, so I thought there had to be something out there for PTs as well. And when we did our research, we found that everything was server-based, very expensive. So even at a size of a practice like mine, I just didn't have the infrastructure to be able to, hire an IT person, hold all those servers in my clinic, and really feel comfortable about it. So that's how sort of the idea sort of spawned.
So, I mean, it makes all the sense in the world when you walk it through that way. You had a problem that was impacting your own business. You tried to find a solution. You couldn't find the right one. And that started the idea. But what brought it into creation?
Well, so I happened to be dating a software engineer at the time who had a lot of experience in building enterprise web-based software. And so, he helped me do a lot of the market research. And initially we put our heads together to solve my problem. So what we built initially was really supposed to be for my practice. And albeit we were a large, enterprise business, it was, supposed to be for me. And so we started on that path. And within about 9 months, we had a platform up and running that our therapists were giving us very positive feedback with. And we were starting to see some efficiencies in helping us to save the money that we wanted to. I started talking to some of my friends and colleagues here in the greater Phoenix area. And so within the next 6 months, we had about 12 other clinics up and running using our platform, also giving us positive feedback, being willing to pay us a per user charge, although it was a bit nominal, but they saw the value in what we were delivering. And so at that point in time, we said, let's figure out, is this problem bigger than just sort of here in the Valley or with me? And when we did that market research, we found that 80% of therapists across the country were also in the same boat as I was in documenting on pen and paper. And so that's when the light bulb went off. And we decided to launch the company in February of 2008. And at that point, we had 3 employees. We were working out in the back of a coffee shop. Um, I was still working full time as a physical therapist in my clinic. We ended up launching the company. We created a booth at one of the industry festivals that we have, and we went on our way. We sold 5 clinics that very first month, and then now it's just been a snowball since then.
I love that. I feel like the best startups have come out of people that are saying, like, I've reached my limit of this problem in my life and I need to fix it. And then it's just a discovery of like, oh, I'm not the only one. You have this problem. You have this problem. You want to give me money to fix it? Okay.
Yeah, well, I think that's the key. A lot of times people ask, how did you get over that hump of, actually putting a price tag on your technology? And a lot of times that I feel like that's the difference between sort of an inventor or just getting out of that ideation phase sometimes can be the hardest piece. Mm-hmm. And so taking that leap of faith and, doing something in your own industry also can be a little bit scary because, you are being judged based on, the needs and how it's being used in the workflow of other therapists and your colleagues. And so that was a big leap of faith for me, but obviously it's paid off, and it's been amazing actually to be such a disruptor and be able to change how people think about documentation now and running their business, private practice businesses.
That's amazing. And I know that you said you were identifying, is this problem just a Valley specific thing or is it broader? How many different states or locations are people using your software now?
Well, we actually are in all 50 states, even in Guam. We have over 15,000 practices, which equates to about a little over 40% market share utilizing our WebPT platform now. And that's essentially around 85,000 users hitting our software platform every day. It is a mission critical application. So people are using it every single day as soon as they open their practice, it's the first thing they pull up and the last thing they log off on at the end of the day.
That's incredible. And Guam, like you're like, not only am I in all 50 states, I raise you Guam.
Well, I still have not been able to convince anyone that we need to do a site visit. I have family in Hawaii, so I have gone to see some of our members, and we call our customers members because we feel like we've built this WebPT community. But some of our WebPT members in Hawaii, which I always love to be able to do when I'm able to go see family.
I love that. I mean, was there ever a real point of hesitation where you were like, I don't think this is going to work? Or was it like just pushing through and saying, we have to get this out faster?
Oh, no, it was, there were times obviously where, it's really hard. And you just are scratching your head and saying, wow, did we really make the right decision? I mentioned that it was difficult for me. I mean, doing this in my own sort of industry and feeling like, wow, I'm going to be judged and this is going to be my legacy. It was a really hard transition. So in 2008, we launched the company and we just experienced exponential growth out of the gate. And in 2010, we took our first round of funding in an angel round here locally from Canal Partners, led by Jim Armstrong from JDA Software. And at that time, I was pregnant with my daughter, Ava, and I had made the decision that I was going to step down as a clinic director because I was essentially, working 2 full-time jobs at that point in time, and then had, gotten pregnant. And so I stepped down as clinic director. And then after I had my daughter Ava and we just continued to grow, I actually stepped away from clinical care and seeing patients and working full-time at WebPT and software. And so that transition period, which was really honestly took me about 9 months to a year to really feel solid and comfortable in my shoes as a technology company leader, and not just, and I shouldn't say just, but that transition from physical therapist and clinical care into software was a difficult leap. And so those were times when I questioned myself, oh my gosh, you spent 15 years building up your reputation and being at the top of your game as a physical therapist, seeing, professional athletes and all the things that I wanted to do. And I checked all the boxes in my career goals. And here I am starting over at the bottom and trying to figure out, wow, is this something that I really wanted to do? And obviously, as the big thing that clicked for me was I got into becoming a physical therapist because I love to help people. And with WebPT, what I saw was that I was actually helping more people, more patients, because I was helping my colleagues and all of these therapists who were able to do their jobs even better because of what we had developed. And so that ability to expand my horizons and think bigger as a leader and as an entrepreneur was really the epiphany, I guess, that really thrust me into saying, oh my gosh, I am all in, like, for sure we're doing this.
It was that, struggle of the golden handcuffs where you had something that was so good and you're like, I need to just break those to get into something better.
That's right.
So you touched on something very briefly, but it's also a huge accomplishment, getting your first round of funding. I mean, that had to have been so validating with the product that you were, pulling together, that people were willing to invest. But it's also very difficult to get the attention to be able to get funding. Was there a point where, you were trying to, solicit funding? Did they come to you? How did that work?
Well, we had been running for almost 3.5 years. We had $1 million run rate at that point in time after launching in 2008. And we kind of were at a crossroads in the business where we were struggling to keep up with demand, which is, an awesome thing when you're going for funding. So we had customers lining up who wanted us, but the infrastructure and the ability to hire more experienced people into the company, we just didn't have the cash flow to be able to do that. And so as co-founders, we made the decision that we were going to go in search of a partner, but we also were very clear that we wanted to have someone that was more than just a check writer, that was someone who was going to really add value to the company. And so in finding Canal Partners, who was led by Jim Armstrong, as I mentioned, he actually was an amazing entrepreneur who started his multi-million-dollar business, took it public, brought it back private. It started it in the back of his garage in Canada. Had really understood, what it meant to be an entrepreneur and in taking a company through a huge growth phase. And so he sat on our board. But yes, that first sort of excitement around bringing a new partner in, excitement and intrepidation, I guess, of bringing someone onto a board, everything became much more official. But it was the key for us to really move forward on this trajectory that we really saw starting to happen. That hockey stick, if you will, that everyone talks about, had started to form. And with that infusion of cash, we turned that $1 million investment from Canal Partners into $20 million in 4 years, in 3 years. So
wow.
They were very happy with us, needless to say. But it's one of those things. I talk a lot about this with entrepreneurs. Is that the bootstrapping component to the business, I think, was critical for us in really not having to give away a lot of our company when we did take that round of funding in. And we've since then taken 2 other rounds. We took a venture capital round from Battery Ventures out of Silicon Valley in 2014, which again helped us exponentially grow. We had grown significantly through that period, but they added another level of help and management and ability to do acquisitions, which we couldn't do before, which, takes us to that next level. And then at the end of 2019, we actually did our latest round of funding with private equity company Warburg Pincus, And, now we're poised to have that sort of next level of growth through the next 3 to 5 years. So it's been an exciting, crazy ride. I'm sure your next question is going to be, did you ever think that was going to happen?
Yeah.
But I would say absolutely not. But as you see the ability to grow and help more people, and the goals now of over 50% market share, the opportunity is just is amazing. And I've been very fortunate to continue to help lead the organization through all of these different phases, which is not easy, I think, for most entrepreneurs to do.
I mean, I think one thing I'd also like to touch on is having kind of a board of directors. I mean, a lot of our startups that we have, I mean, they're so small, and then it's kind of like, at what point do I acquire like a board? Like, what is a board?
Yeah.
Could you kind of talk through, as you guys were growing, and how you took on people to be, your mentors, how you identified what qualities you were looking for?
Well, so first and foremost, you need to take stock in your own skill set, in knowing what are you really good at, what are you really passionate at, and feel comfortable calling yourself an expert in an area. And then there's obviously areas that you don't have great. And then I guess the second step is admitting that you're not good in other areas. And those other areas that you may not have passion for, or just not enough experience in, are the areas that I feel like an advisory board can be most helpful initially. There's a big difference, I think, between mentors and advisors than there is with true board members. And you can have a longer list of advisors that are truly helping in the business that may not necessarily rise to the level of a board member. A lot of times board spots are coveted for those that have invested in the company. A lot of times board members, if they're going to be truly on your board, will ask for equity as part of being a board member. So you have to choose those very carefully. But usually advisory board members are those that are raising their hand, willing to help, and have a very specialized area that they may be helping with a project, or some aspect of the business that you may not feel as comfortable in.
Yeah, I think it's so critical. And one of the mistakes, I mean, just from the environment that I work in, that I see, is people so early on saying, I'm bringing this person in as a founder and they're taking X% of this, or I'm doing this and they're taking X% of that. And they're just giving away, percentages of their company and their revenue, because they're like, oh, that's the only way I can get someone to help me. But that's definitely not the case.
It's not the case. And it shouldn't be the case. And I think what is hard initially is that you have no idea the value of your equity when you first start, because essentially it means nothing. And you and they are betting on the fact that someday it's going to be exponentially worth more. And that may be true. But if that's the case, right, a 5% or 3% equity piece is enough, right? It's not 25 or 10 or, these larger numbers that people like to throw around, when 10% of zero means zero, but 10% of a million is a lot more.
It adds up.
It becomes squirrely. And we did this early. We made that mistake early as well. And when we went through that first round of funding, we had to go back to some of our early employees and do a little bit of negotiation in changing the cap table, because we actually changed from an LLC to an incorporated company. And so we had to do some I don't say smooth talking, but we had to share with them our dilemma of what was transpiring, and make sure that they were kept whole, whether that was now being able to pay them in cash, or, switching over that equity, but explaining to them, do you want a smaller piece of a bigger pie or a bigger piece of a smaller pie, right? And so most everybody that we had given equity, and this was a piece that we actually carved out in our cap table. Our first 100 employees actually got equity in our company.
Wow.
And so, albeit small amount of shares, it was still equity. So they, really felt invested in the business. which was, for founders, a really remarkable, awesome accomplishment when we went through our second round of funding and even our third round of funding when, there was a much more significant value given to the company where, we've made multimillionaires of many of our employees in the business. And so that's just, it blows my mind even saying it out loud today. One of the most amazing things that outcomes as an entrepreneur is to be able to do that for your people who believed in you from the beginning and stayed with you and added so much value to the company.
So, on the note of people, let's talk about culture.
Yeah.
What is the WebPT culture like?
Well, we have a set of core values that were established back in 2010 that has sort of transcended our growth. And those values are essentially at the heart of everything that we do. Our culture is one of collaborativeness. It's fun culture, but it's hardworking. One of our core values is más with menos. So we like doing, which is more with less. So we like being scrappy and finding people that are really hungry, who love to learn. But we're very much a supportive culture as well. We subscribe in general to a business mindset of conscious capitalism, which is basically based on 4 pillars of, having a true North Star and vision for the company, which our sort of mission is to empower therapists to achieve greatness in practice. And so everything that we sort of do kind of very much focuses on that, and we're all pulling in the same direction. Believing that everybody, that we're building a community so that there are many stakeholders in our business, not just employees, the board, and those that are right with us. But we talk about our vendors. We're in the warehouse district like you in Phoenix, and we love doing things for the warehouse district because it's our environment that we work and live in, right? And so, and then finally is just conscious culture of really being deliberate about your culture and embracing this we versus me kind of mentality as a business. And so, in essence, that's who we are. It's all about, creating raving fans, whether that's internal or external.
Yeah. I must say the few employees of your company that I've met, I love them. I used to go to the food trucks when we used to have them, and there was always WebPT people. And I'm like, they're like so nice, like, giving me recommendations when I'm talking about what I'm going to order. They're like, oh, well, I just got that. This is what this looks like. And like pitching me on why I should get the pulled pork sandwich. I'm like, okay, I'm sold.
Yeah. When you're small as a small business, your culture starts with the values of you as founders. And making sure that is translatable to your people. Initially, it all happened through osmosis, right? You kind of, well, what is it like to be a WebPT? Or, well, you're going to go sit next to the person that you're going to be working with, and you kind of just understand the lay of the land. As we continue to grow, like that company culture and making sure that it was sustainable, really for us was critically important. When we took in that first round of funding, one of the first things that we did was hire more people. So we had about 10, 12 people in the business. And within the next 6 months, we had doubled in size. Wow. And we felt this cultural shift. And that's really where we sat down as a company, actually, all 35, 40 of us at that time, and created this big whiteboard conversation where we wrote down all the things that we loved about the business and wanted, and the people, and what we wanted, what did we stand for kind of conversation. And all of those words on the whiteboard is what got distilled down into what are our core values today. And so what I'm really most proud of is that came from our team. Like, it wasn't a top-down sort of, oh, this is going to be the WebPT culture. It was really already what had started. Yeah. And then now it's just so deeply woven into everything that we do, from our job descriptions to our performance reviews to the language that we use. it's just part of who we are. It's the foundation of our success as a business.
I gotta say, I'm a sucker for whiteboard conversations where it's like, let's just whiteboard this. I'm like, yeah, like let's get a long whiteboard. Let's do this.
Yep.
So, I mean, it seems like you guys have just an amazing, culture, hardworking people. People show up to get things done, but and it sucks that we're in this situation. But how has the pandemic impacted your team, your culture, your business?
Well, before the pandemic, we had a very strong in-person culture. Mm-hmm. We have this amazing HQ in Phoenix. Through acquisition over the years, we have hubs, we had hubs in California, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Georgia, Maine, Virginia, and in Colorado and Denver, just outside of Denver. Oh, and Boston as well. Mm-hmm. And so when the pandemic hit, we, within 3 weeks, sent everybody home and said we're working from home. And at that point, we said we're working from home until July of 2020. And then as we saw, as everyone saw it continue to just escalate and get worse, we said, okay, till the end of the year. And then about in August, we just pushed it all the way out till June of 2021.
Wow.
So we have now been working from home for a full year. Our ENPS, which we do an internal survey like the Net Promoter Score, we just do it internally for our employees. We kind of switch up the wording a little bit. I'm sure you're familiar with the NPS score, right?
Net Promoter Scores, gotta track those bad boys.
That's right. So we ask internally how likely is it that you would recommend WebPT as an employer of choice? And we take those scores to your friends and family. And we take those scores and then, score them just like the NPS scores, but we call it the ENPS, Employee Net Promoter Score. And so our ENPS has never been higher than it has throughout this past year. And so obviously people love working from home, but we've also implemented, a lot more communication. We do it through Zoom. We were doing quarterly all company stand-ups previously where we would share, updates on the company, celebrate some different big wins that we had, things like that. But right after the pandemic started, our CEO and I led an all hands stand-up on a weekly basis. And then we tapered off to every other week as things started to settle and people, we were getting things accomplished with getting them working from home, getting new processes in place, things like that. And now we've moved to into a every 3-week cadence, which has, and again, we're trying to get feedback along the way, and we got so much positive feedback of, we love hearing from you guys. We love getting the updates. We love celebrating people. It's helping us keep connected. We pushed out Slack during this time as well, so that we would have, a communication platform that we could have a little bit more visibility and also just keep the documentation archived. So we rolled that out, but there's been a few tools and things that we've changed. Zoom is now accessible for everyone to keep us connected, but don't get me wrong, it hasn't been easy and we still have a lot of work to do. But as far as from an employee standpoint, I know that they've embraced what we've been able to accomplish. The one other thing I do want to mention, which I know a lot of companies are now working with or dealing with, not only did we go through a pandemic this past year, but there was a lot of civil unrest and, rioting in different cities and things like that. And so heightened awareness around diversity, equity, inclusion was already something that we had within the business, but it just accelerated some of the things that we wanted to do. And so I helped lead this past year a whole ERG program, which is Employee Resource Group program within our company. We had already this umbrella employee group called Propel Us. And now we have 8 other groups, including, Propel Me, Propel Pride, like all the different sort of groups that our employees felt like they would want to be engaged in, which has been really awesome to see, like bubbling up from the bottom up of, hey, we love this. And it's just another way for us to stay connected and have crucial conversations and important conversations that then can be given to leadership of changes or positives and negatives of how we can be better as a company.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the heightened awareness on diversity and inclusion is something that's been necessary for a long time. And at least for startups, I mean, it's a tricky thing where you're agile and you can shift because you're scrappy and doing these things. But then it's also like, what is the standard? What can I maintain? What are the bigger players doing? Is this overestimating our abilities, underestimating our abilities? And I think the fact that WebPT is taken such a strong stance and being able to offer these groups and empowering employees to be able to raise their hand and say what's important to them, and then having that support really speaks volumes to what you guys are trying to accomplish.
Well, thank you very much. It's it's being having a woman as a CEO, having a co-founder that is female as well, I think has really helped to make sure we never lose sight of this diversity issue, and having the appropriate initiatives within the company. It's definitely helped us from a recruiting standpoint because we hire some amazing women leaders. And one of the things they often say is, well, it's a women-led company. This attracted me more to your business as well. And as you know, there's so much research on having a diverse board, even if initially your employees of your business, a lot of times it's your friends, right, that come join you, and you may not have the means, I guess, to really do as much diversity as you might want to, but at the board level, you always have that ability to do. And there's so much research out there that shows the more diverse your board is, the more successful you'll be as a business.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, I've seen so many memes where it's like, this ad wouldn't have happened if there was one woman in the room, or if there was
that's right.
like, multiple, different backgrounds brings multiple perspectives. And it really, I mean, I think it saves companies so much from, embarrassment or things like that, because you have those perspectives where you don't end up in that position where it's like, if only there was XYZ in this room, this wouldn't have happened.
Well, and it's something I talk about a lot, but it goes even beyond, gender or race in terms of diversity. We love to talk about, and I love to talk about cognitive diversity. So it's also where you grew up. It's where you've been educated. It's, where you're from in the country, the experiences that you've had. So for example, quite a few of our SMT, our senior management leaders within our organization actually don't have healthcare backgrounds. And so they've had to learn the healthcare side, which is really important, and a little bit of an uphill battle in terms of some aspects of it. But they brought this sort of different lens of, other components of business into our business. And so collectively, when you've already got a lot of healthcare experience, now you've got somebody looking at a problem, for example, just through a different lens and through different experience, that they may be able to bring a solution that you would have never thought of, because you're only looking through your own experience and lens. And so it really goes beyond just, racial or gender diversity. It's all about that experiential diversity and cognitive diversity as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's surround yourself in a room full of people smarter than you. It's not that anyone in that room isn't intelligent. It's that everyone is, smarter or brings something to the table, and make sure that you bring something to the table to support the group, but also realize, what you know and what you don't know.
Yeah, it's that humbleness as a founder that you have to find and take hard grip on, because it'll only benefit you in the future.
Wow. Well, I just have two last questions for you. Question one, I would love a piece of advice that you can share with maybe people who are starting out their business, or, something for them to just keep top of mind. And question two is how people can learn more about WebPT.
Okay. Well, first question on my piece of advice. I think when I talk to entrepreneurs, too often they will start with a vision or something they want to do, but not have a clear understanding of the problem that they're trying to solve. And so obviously when we just started this conversation and how WebPT started, there was a very clear problem that we were solving, and we solved that first. Now our platform goes beyond just documentation, which I was trying to solve initially. I mean, we have, a suite of 10 other products now that we've grown, but at the core of who we are is still that documentation EMR system. And so having a very clear vision of the problem you're trying to solve, critically important, not only in trying to stay focused on in your business, but also as you're relaying your elevator pitch and relaying what you do and why it's important to others, it always comes back to that problem solving definition, if you will. And so, and then I'll just put a cherry on top of that is that making sure that if that problem you're solving is something you're really passionate about, especially in difficult times like right now when everyone's struggling with, COVID and trying to scale your business. It's that passion and that love for what you do that's really going to pull you through. So I guess that would be my piece of advice. And then if you'd love to get in touch with me, I'd love to keep this conversation going. I'm on LinkedIn, Heidi Jannenga. If you are interested in learning more about WebPT, WebPT.com. We have a bunch of information on our website. We even have a careers page, wink, wink, and we are hiring quite a few people. So a lot of awesome opportunities to join us. And speaking of our culture earlier, we are hiring anywhere now. We are switched our sort of in-house culture to a more digital first culture. So we are hiring anywhere. You don't have to be in Phoenix. And so a new sort of twist on the WebPT culture.
I love that. And like I said before, like your staff is so friendly. I think that, I can't imagine not enjoying working at WebPT. So, definitely I encourage everyone listening to, check out the jobs board. If it's not for you, find someone who it might be for, because it's definitely, a company to watch for sure. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to watching you guys grow and hearing you speak at events and, just seeing all the amazing things that you guys are going to accomplish. So thank you so much.
Miranda, thank you so much for the opportunity, and look forward to hopefully clinking glasses sometime soon over at the Larry.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.